And thank you very much, Merlin Emmanuel. And now I'm going to hand over to Zita Holborn, who is co-chair, along with Lee Jasper, of BARAC, Black Activists Rising Against the Cuts. She's also a big cheese in the PCS trade union, on the National Executive.
Greetings, everyone. Well, I never thought of myself as a dairy product before, but learn something new every day. I must apologise, first of all, for having stepped out of the room for a while. I was doing a live news interview, so apologies for not being here until the speakers that spoke while I was out of the room. The roots of these uprisings over the past few days are clearly to do with poverty, discrimination, injustice and cuts. We've had a series of deaths in custody with no answers from the police this year, but if you look at over 300 deaths in custody over the last 10 years, there's only been 2 where there's even just a hint of the police having any guilt or appointing any blame to the police. And how can that be right? We've had heavy-handed, abusive policing at student protests, at trade union and anti-cuts protests. I was assaulted by a police officer outside my local council budget-setting meeting. Young people have been treated disgracefully. You look at EMAs, you look at the tripling of fees, you look at the facilities being cut, you look at the lack of job opportunities. Young people need hope. They need a place to channel their anger and frustration. And I think what we need to do after today is we need to organise with young people. Students have been very much at the forefront of protests, and there have been some other young people, but there are a lot of young people that are disenfranchised, that are feeling very isolated, very afraid of the future because there's nothing there for them. And the attempts by politicians and the media to racialise these protests over the last few days is an absolutely disgrace. It's absolutely horrendous. When you look at who's been involved, it's a generation of young people of every single race, black, white, Asian. It's not a black issue. However, if you look at the areas where the riots and the looting are taking place, they're in the most deprived and the poorest parts of the UK. And those are the areas where black people live disproportionately. And the reason why we live in those areas is because of the discrimination we face in the education system, in the labour market, that we're forced to live in the poorest areas of the UK. There's no coincidence that the riots have taken place in those poorest areas. It's a cry for help. People only go out and riot and loot out of desperation because they don't see any other choices or chances for them. I was at the London Muslim Centre at a meeting on Monday night, and it kicked off outside with some youths running down the road, and it was just after the call to prayer. So what all the worshippers did, they came out of the mosque where the youths are sort of gathered across the road, and they went to speak to them, to engage with them, to tell them, go home or we'll give you a hiding. Yeah, effectively that's what they were doing. As they were gathered speaking to the young people, that's when the police showed up en masse with riot vans, with their riot gear. They let dogs out of those riot vans, and they set dogs from the 4th floor of the London Muslim Centre. We could hear how ferocious those dogs were. They set the dogs on everybody, including the worshippers. There were people that were 90 and 80 with walking sticks, and they set them on everybody. According to the police, they thought they were all part of the same gang. So if you want to look at how do the police view black people and minority ethnic people in this country, use that as an example. That tells you exactly how they see us. They just put us in one pot. We're all thugs. We're all criminals. I watched the disgraceful debate, emergency parliamentary debate on TV today, where MPs were demonising young people, suggesting that benefits should be withdrawn, suggesting that fathers were to blame, single mothers others were to blame, saying that legal action should be taken against parents and the Human Rights Act should be done away with so they can abuse our human rights. This is the government we're dealing with. This is a disgraceful, I call them an evil government, because they've got a duty. They have a duty of care towards every citizen in this country. The government aren't listening to us. Now, if they don't listen and they don't engage with us, what's going to happen? People are going to take to the streets. Students took to the streets. Trade unionists are taking to the streets. And young people will take to the streets. If they think by just calling everyone folks and telling them, no, we're going to just take a hard line, get out the water cannons, get out the guns, arrest them, give them big prison sentences, that poverty and deprivation and discrimination is going away. It's not. They need to address the root cause. They're not stupid. They know what the root cause is. And if they are not going to engage with that and listen and do something about it, it's up to us to engage with young people, with students, with the elderly, with pensioners, with workers, work together and bring about solutions, because we need to bring this evil, disgusting, irresponsible government down.